I move that we recognize first interpellation the gentleman from the 1st District of Davao del Sur, the Honorable Marc Douglas Cagas.
The gentleman from the 1st District of Davao del Sur is recognized, the Honorable Marc Cagas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Secretary of OPAP is wearing a purple blouse. I tend to like that color. Does that mean, distinguished sponsor, that the good secretary is supportive of the reproductive health bill?
Madam Speaker, she gave an affirmative. I likewise see the good gentleman is wearing yellow. I could presume he is supportive of the programs of the administration, Madam Speaker.
That's very interesting, distinguished sponsor. Having said, pleasantries before, I have no really objections. I will no longer propose a 1 peso budget for the OPAP. In fact, I am in agreement as to the 569 or so proposed budget for OPAP. But please, distinguished sponsor, may I make this representation ask the OPAP through you few questions only, distinguished sponsor.
My privilege, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. First, distinguished sponsor, just like to touch a little bit on the pamana, just a little bit. Pamana is spread over how many departments of government?
4 departments, Madam Speaker.
4 departments, and these are the DSWD, the
DILG,
the DP,
DAR,
and
and
DPWH.
OPAP. DPWH is not part of it.
All right. Again, I'm not really contradicting the Pamana program, but for purposes of the sponsor informing everyone, what is this Pamana all about? Baka may hindi pa nakaalam kasi distinguished sponsor, ano ba itong Pamana? Pamana ba ito ng problema o pamana ng serbisyo at proyekto?
Hopefully, ang pamana ho nito ay katahimikan sa kanayunan at mas magandang kabuhayan sa mga matagal ng mga komunidad na apektado sa kaharasan at digmaan sa iba-ibang mga grupong nananatiling hiwalay. If I could read the objectives of the pamana, it aims to reduce poverty and vulnerability in conflict-affected areas through sustainable rural development, community infrastructure, and focused delivery of social services. To improve governance through partnerships with national and local institutions, building capacities for governance and enhancement of transparency and accountability mechanisms, and empower communities and strengthen their capacity to address issues of conflict and peace through activities that promote social cohesion, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. So in other words, Mr. Distinguished Sponsor, the Pamana program, amongst other things, that is aimed at reducing poverty. So would it therefore be fair to say that the same falls under the poverty reduction priority of the President?
As a consequence, yes, Madam Speaker, but it will much more fall into one of the 5 pillars of the budget, which is just and lasting peace and the rule of law. It is poverty alleviation consequences, but what is distinct with Pamana, it only is applied to conflict-afflicted areas, which probably other poverty alleviation programs of government and other agencies couldn't implement.
Forgive me for asking this, distinguished sponsor, but I just want to point out to everybody that it's good that you said that Pamana is basically for conflict-affected areas. The reason why I'm asking is simply because under the 5 pillars of our budget, there are lump sums. Di ba? Yung kada priority, kunyari, yung sinabi niya, poverty reduction, transparency, and accountability, meron niya kanya-kanyang lump sums. My point is, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be a redundancy as far as budgeting is concerned, because after all, we are here to work on our budget, a budget which is more feasible and efficient for the benefit of our people. So linawin ho natin, is the budget for Pamana, is this redundant to, is this the same as the 5 pillar that you mentioned, distinguished sponsor?
No, Mr. Speaker, this is not a redundancy. As mentioned, there are 5 pillars. These are one of the components under one of the pillars. And given the state of our budget, we don't have enough for everything that we wish for. Definitely one of the key activities is elimination of redundancy and wastage of funds, Madam Speaker.
Very good, because that's also one of my goals why I keep asking questions. I'm not here to delay the budget, distinguished sponsor, but to constructively criticize and make sure that money is allocated or allotted to where it should be. I'd like also to be given a copy of the menu, just like Representative Tino requested, if the OPAP will kindly provide me.
Yes, Madam Speaker, the menu shall be provided to the good gentleman from Davao.
Thank you. Mr. Distinguished Sponsor, sir, is there a way for us, maybe that's why OPAP is a hot issue, maybe there should be communication process, not only between OPAP and MILF, but probably OPAP and members of this Congress. Maybe OPAP can show to us the results already of what they have implemented so far. Like, for example, how much for last year, Secretary, nag-umpisa na ba tayo ng pamana?
Are you talking about 2012, 2011? So is that what Pamana? That's still Pamana.
Pamana, but private. It's not pinapilot that. It's not. It's only next year where it will really be.
Mr. Speaker, on this year's budget, there's a 568 million from the Office of the President piloting the project. It has just started, and whatever the results that we would OPAP would obtain, they would gladly share to the House of Representatives, Madam Speaker.
Yes. Ang point ko, sinasabi ko po, distinguished sponsor, OPAP family, ipakita natin sa taong bayan kung yung accomplishments, yung classrooms na nagawa, yung karsada, yung kabuhayan na naibigay, so that distinguished sponsor, hindi ko naman kine-question yung integrity ng Office of the Presidential Advisor on Peace Process, but I would very much appreciate it if they can communicate not only to us but to the people and show where the respective lump sums from the respective departments under, let's say, Pamana go to. Para mapakita. Kasi for me, I have no way of verifying whether or not this classroom really exists or was constructed or this road was paved and concreted. Hindi ko po alam, distinguished sponsor. And so if the OPAP would communicate with us and to the public that money was indeed well spent, then it would be I would highly appreciate that, distinguished sponsor.
Well, Madam Speaker, as part of their transparency and accountability mechanism, there is a requirement for web posting. So whatever has been done for this year, it is currently posted. Likewise, other plans for this year, I think, is already posted, Madam Speaker.
I'm sorry, distinguished sponsor, but this representation is it's not that well a verse of a website. I don't even have a Facebook, distinguished sponsor. May I therefore just ask the OPAP through you a hard copy of, I'm very traditional, distinguished sponsor.
Yes, Madam Speaker, the listing and printout of the contents of the website shall be provided to the Honorable Cagas.
I hope OPAP can provide it, they can give me a time frame. Wag naman sanang matagal. Yung bang, before we go on second reading.
Before Friday, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Because it is not indicated here in the GAB, distinguished sponsor, last na po ito sa pamana, last na. It's not indicated here in the GAB where the PAMAN, the more than 329,343 would go. May the OPAP through this distinguished sponsor at least enumerate 5 projects, no? 5 lang, kahit 5 projects o serbisyo na mapupuntahan ng 329 million pesos. With the assurance that just like Representative Tino, OPAP will furnish me a copy of the same.
Farm to Market Road. Well, Madam Speaker, to name 5, core shelters, school buildings, water systems, farm to market roads, health centers, Madam Speaker.
Salamat po. Yun po ang sinasabi ko na kailangan yung OPAP matutong mag-communicate sa tao. Magandang yung mga programa na yun, water system, karsada, shelter, napakaganda po yun. Ang problema lang po, minsan hindi nako-communicate. So, I would humbly suggest to the OPAP family to probably advertise or report via TV, radio, or even in print media, so that we would know and we would be encouraged that things in OPAP is really working, distinguished sponsor.
Yes, Madam Speaker, but given the minimal budget that they have, they will endeavor to take the extra mile to inform the public on their programs, Madam Speaker.
Hingi na lang tayo sa PCSO para may pang TV ad yung OPAP. Pwede ba yun? Distinguished sponsor?
Madam, pag tumaya siguro sila sa loto, Madam Speaker, then pwede.
Anyway, thank you, distinguished sponsor. I'm about to wind up. Few more things. Yung rebel returnee program, it is still under OPAP?
Yes, but we are working on an executive order to transfer it to the ING.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is under the OPAP. An executive order is being drafted to transfer such function to DILG, Madam Speaker.
Where in the GAB is the budget for rebel returnee program is reflected, Mr. Distinguished?
Pagtapos nung hindi natapos ang PASA registration, there is a new re-engineering, so it will be under the ILG agency, but the ILG. So no budget.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there is none in the budget. There's no budget, so I guess tender loving care and hot coffee is all they can do for rebel returnees. Thus, it is being redesigned, and hopefully DILG could then come up with a more substantive program for the rebel returnees, Madam Speaker.
Isn't Secretary Gasmin is here already, and probably the AFP Chief of Staff is also listening to us. Isn't it part of the job or the task of OPAP to encourage rebel returnees program, the single sponsor? Or was OPAP created only to negotiate with MILF? Kasi dito sa budget, ang nakalagay lang, panay 100 million for service and support for MILF. What about the other problems that we have?
Rebel returnees, are you sure? Well, Madam Speaker, it would be an appropriate question when DND comes later, but for OPAP, it is tasked for the reintegration, but convincing rebel returnees to join the fold is not, it is, but it's being redesigned for DILG, Madam Speaker.
For DILG and not for AFP?
DILG. DILG, Madam Speaker.
So in other words, OPAP is basically tasked to deal with MILF and not necessarily with rebel insurgents such as the NPAs?
Well, CPP-NPA is another front, another peace panel is formed, and there are hopefully discussions in the near future. The next scheduled date is October of this year, Madam Speaker.
Yes, but that would be redundant. That would be redundant already. We'll be creating another office of the President for peace process, and we already have Secretary DLS as OPAP Secretary. Why would we?
No, it is all under the current OPAP. A panel has been designated for MILF, another panel for NDF, all under OPAP, Madam Speaker.
So if I were a NPA, for example, I would surrender, and I have my weapon given to me is an M203 Armalite. Who would give me livelihood or payment for my firearm? Is it would Secretary Gasmin shoulder my expenses, or would it be the Chief of Staff of the AFP? Or would it be OPAP, single sponsor?
Working with the provincial government units. It's the
Or would it
AFP
be
working with
Secretary
the
Jess
government
Robredo?
units, with our assistance.
Okay. Well, if you were an NPA rebel, I would have arrested you, but since you are surrendering, there is a program to basically the DILG and the AFP are closely coordinating, assisted by OPAP, to allow rebel returnees to be reintegrated into society. So therefore, to answer the question, it would be a DILG-DND affair, Madam Speaker.
All right, it's a good thing that DND is next. The reason I asked the OPAP and through you, the civil sponsor, is that there are cases that I observe as far as rebel returnees are concerned when they surrender to a certain battalion outfit, for example, the 49th IB, for instance. More often than not, the battalion commander and other officers of said battalion, ito example lang na 49th. I don't know kung meron mang 49th IB talaga. Hindi ko alam po. More often than not, they wouldn't know what to do because wala silang pera for rebel returnees na they could not pay for the firearm, they could not give livelihood. Kung minsan yung mga rebelde, mga bata di ba? Paano natin papag-aralin yung mga bata? So, how can we, in other words, how can we reintegrate them if OPAP is powerless to do so? Maybe we should slash budget from other departments and give it to OPAP so that, OPAP can take care of rebel returnees also.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, DILG and DND are the lead agencies for this. Then if there is such a hypothetical example, then if the 49th IB, then the 49th IB should know, since they are part of the DILG, DND program for reintegration. And likewise, it is currently being re-engineered to be more receptive to the program itself, Madam Speaker.
Sige po, susunod naman yung DND. Tatanong ko na lang po sa DND yun. Distinguished sponsor,
To review because
sa kauli-hulihan po,
we really needed to suspend and review. So our recommendation is that it will be interagency. Hindi pa yan. Pero yung validation of kung talagang rebel return, yun ang DND. Yung pera wala sa kanila.
Well, Madam Speaker, clearly I think there was failure in the system. Probably even if we ask DND, they will say that they don't have any budget for this. So it is currently being reviewed, being re-engineered under DILG eventually.
Paki-review lang because it's very important, no? Kasi like sa amin, let's be very specific lang. Sa amin probinsya, the army wouldn't have funds to help the rebel returnees, no? Pupunta sila sa LGU, okay sa akin, kaso yung PDAP ko, wala pa Anong may tutulong ko, distinguished sponsor? So, kaya ko pinopoint out to na, they're also Filipinos and we should help them because they're going back to the folds of government. And whether it be DND, OPAP, or DILG, I encourage everybody to take a second look at it and re-implement it because that's very important. Isipin nyo, mga bata naging rebelde na, kawawa naman. Instead of going to school, they they go to the mountains and fight. So, maybe through the pamana, talagang marireduce yung kaguluhan. Sana nga, that's what I'm praying for also. And sana itong isang gugulo na Muslim group na breakaway, sana hindi mangyari isang higanting MILF na naman. And I would simply put my faith on the current panel that whenever you make a treaty, please be sure that that your paramount interest would be the welfare of our, citizenry, and would not make any deals which would prejudice the general welfare of the more general of our populace. With that, distinguished sponsor and Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank Junjun and the OPA family for having patience to listen and to ask and to answer my questions. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam.
Majority Leader.